All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Mic'd Up Outdoor Podcast. I am your host, Josh Tanner, and tonight I have a guest in-house with me, a local guest, a local entrepreneur, sculptor, artist, freelance, a little bit of everything, Mr. Jeff Best from Clare, Michigan. Jeff, thanks for coming on, man.
Well, thank you for asking me to come.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah, for sure. So you are local here in Clare, where we both live. Have you lived here all your life, or
No,
did you
we
move
moved
from somewhere?
Yeah, we moved here from the Mason, Eaton Rapids area, which is south of Lansing, in 1990.
Okay, yeah.
we've
You
been
want to
here
pull your
since.
mic into your mouth just a little bit there. There you go. Perfect.
that?
Yeah,
Okay.
perfect. So you moved in from Mason then.
Yeah.
Yeah. What year was that?
1990.
90. Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking that you were here a lot earlier than that.
No,
So
Dan was like 4 or 5 years old when we moved here.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Sam was just a couple years old.
yeah, for sure. So you've lived here since then, and I guess tell us about kind of what brought you here and what you did and what you're doing or up to these days.
Yeah, I was in the feed industry, like the Johnson's elevator here in Clare.
Yeah.
That type of feed business for quite a few years. 24 years, I believe, with Purina Mills.
All right.
And so when I moved here, I took over the northern part of Michigan.
Okay.
And so I had from Clare north and even the east end of the UP. So I covered all those. Called on feed stores like Johnson's elevator.
Okay.
Just a little feed elevators all over northern Michigan, and then worked with a lot of dairies. Back when they had, the family dairies. If you got a 200 cow dairy, that was a big account. Of course, you don't even see those anymore. They're all either corporate things or they're not non-existent anymore.
I was going to say, because talking about the mills, you don't hardly even see like mills like we have. I mean, we have Johnson's elevator here in Clare, which has been here for
long time.
But I feel like it's just trended more towards like the Tractor Supplies and the specialty type places, and I don't know. I guess traveling around, I don't even remember even seeing any other mills unless you go like out into like Iowa, Missouri, Kansas areas.
Yeah,
and stuff,
It's changed. I mean, obviously, all that industry has changed so much, and that's kind of the reason I started getting tired of it. That was changing. The Purina Mills was bought out by Land O'Lakes, and they got to the point where they wanted us to wear a Land O'Lake hat and one elevator, go into one elevator and Purina in the other. And I was
that wasn't your thing.
Yeah, right. And I've never been a good corporate person, anyways. I mean, not that I wasn't a good employee, I was, but I did it because I made enough money to put a roof over our head and
support
kids'
the family,
schools, feed food on the table, but it was never a huge passion for me. Other than the last few years, I transitioned out of the dairy, and I went into what they called the companion animal, which is working with horses, which that wasn't a huge thing for me, working with horses.
Right.
But I got to work with a lot of high fence deer ranches.
Oh, okay.
And so I worked with the sanctuary, and then at that time, in the heyday, there was like 700 high fence, either breeder ranches or hunting ranches in the state of Michigan.
Yeah.
And so I started calling on all those type places, and not places that I would myself hunt.
But it was cool to go to and see it anyway.
And I would take, in September, I would take clients to the sanctuary. We'd set in all their blinds, divvy them up between blinds, so you can see. At that time, they didn't have very many 200 inchers, but you'd see 170, 180 inch deer walking in, and everybody was, it's cool. It was just fun to do.
Yeah. So the sanctuary, that's located over by Canadian Lakes area.
Yeah. They had one in Rodney, and boy, and one up in Big Rapids area. I can't remember now. Isn't that something? But anyhow, they're still well known in the SCI and those type celebrity hunter type people. Very wealthy people, and they're good people that run those places. And I have nothing against them.
Right.
It's just not something.
It's just not your thing.
Not my thing.
But, no, I get it.
But it's a deer is a deer.
Right. Yeah. It would be interesting to be able to be a part of growing the deer that they actually put, that they have there, and the genetics, and to really I guess I don't even know if you want to call it manipulate it, but just to be a part of something like that, to see what you can do.
I don't know what they do now, but back then it was just when they put up the fence, it was whatever natural deer were there.
Oh, okay.
And so they didn't have a breeding program,
Sure.
Other than they, got to the point the last few years that I was working with them was, wanted to get deer at 6.5 years old, that type of thing. And well, now they pump out 200 plus inches. Probably they probably have had 300 inches. I don't know. I've been out of the loop there for quite a few years, but it was always interesting. But I worked with some deer ranches, one deer ranch down in Indiana, and he had breeder pens, and he would. They would breed them and bring in, deer that had, huge antlers, and then they breed, and then they kick them out into the 1,500 acre,
right.
And I could tell you some stories about that place, but anyways, it was a fun, for me to be in the feed business, where the dairy or the horse or even the dog and cat stuff didn't turn me on. It was still stuff I did, but I really enjoyed the deer.
Yeah.
So it was a good outlet for me.
Yeah. Did you find when you were doing that the same minerals and I guess trace minerals and feed that you would feed like a cattle or a horse, does that kind of mesh right into what that they would feed the deer? Kind of the same sort of thing.
Oh yeah, I mean the components are all the same. It's just in the time of the year that we feed them. There was a lot of I remember when I would do nutrition seminars, if you will, for deer. There's a lot of correlation between a dairy heifer,
Sure.
and the first time heifer. It's not going to produce as much milk because it's still growing its body,
Sure.
And it's same correlation to a white-tailed deer, the reason they don't put on huge antlers the first, second, third year, typically into the third year starting getting good, is because they're still growing their body.
Yeah. It's just like a young kid.
Right, yeah. So it's, there was a lot of correlation between those two that since I knew the dairy business so well, I could bring that kind of information into the deer seminar, make people understand, because I tell you, years ago, people just thought a 130-inch deer, which was a monster back then, and it's still a great deer in Michigan. They just kind of fell out of the sky, and all of a sudden here was a 130-inch deer, and you'd always hear the people say, well, I've had the same spike horn running on my property for 4 years. Well, no, you've had the same looking
right,
spike horn, but
it's the genetics of that deer.
Yeah, they just didn't really understand that how you get big deer is you have to have good nutrition, but you got to get some age on them.
Right.
You can have the greatest nutrition there is, and if you don't have any age,
it doesn't matter what you have. Yeah, for sure. And isn't it funny that we, as a Michigan resident or a Michigan native, that like 130-inch deer to us is phenomenal. Yeah. We were just talking before we even hit record that if you could stay in Michigan and shoot 130-inch deer every year, you'd just be tickled.
Yeah.
And I mean, to go out of state and talk to the people who have lived in those, this Missouri and Kansas and Ohio and those states out there that are more in the I guess the big deer belt. I mean, they look at a 130-inch deer and just say, "Oh, that's nice looking little buck."
the hunters will, but when I say hunters, I mean there's the same style individual in Illinois, in Iowa, as there is in Michigan. What I mean by that is, I remember a time that my buddy shot a 168-incher.
Okay.
Just a enormous,
fantastic,
beautiful deer. He had junk all over. He wasn't real wide, but he was cool. And we were there for 10 days, so he shot it early on, so we had to take it to the butcher shop. And so it was a Saturday, and it's laying in the back of the truck along with a doe, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And these people would come up around the back. Wow, that's a heck of a deer. I mean, these are local people.
Okay.
And there was 5 or 6 people standing around looking at that buck. And it just kind of, I told Mark, my buddy, when I got back in the truck when we left, I thought this would be something that they would, that's just another deer that we always see.
Okay.
These people were just as amazed as what we would be at
Okay.
it. And, again, this has been,
yeah, I was going to say it's been a minute.
Yeah. So, but it's interesting. I guess what I'm getting at is there's not the same passion might not be the right word, the same drive in Illinois, and Iowa, Missouri, for the everyday. I mean, we got everyday hunters type people here that it's just been what they've done traditionally their whole life. You know, where they're, you know, their seasons are a little different. You know, they start and stop, and they, you know, and so they don't have quite the tradition. And so it's not really built into their family. And, you know,
that's a good point.
And so I think, again, this is just one person's observation through the years, but they don't get, there's not the same, I want to say passion, but I don't know if that's the right word. For deer hunting in those states is what
it's just not ingrained in their DNA like it is here,
and it's nothing wrong with that. We're pretty unique here.
I think, I mean, if you are a part of a hunting family, you know, obviously you grew up with it. I grew up with it, you know, through our parents and grandparents and stuff. It's just like that's just what you did. And I mean, it had to take something very, very different to pull you away from that. At least for me, anyway. I mean, like that's just. Like come deer season, that's just what we did. Right, and I mean, it was always exciting, especially at a young age. I mean, I remember my first trip with my dad. I think I was 10 or 12. It was before I could gun hunt, and of course, it was always gun hunting at that point. It was never bow hunting with my dad, and I mean, some of the most exciting times, and I can remember just like it was yesterday. So I mean, I guess it takes a family, you know, to get that drive and an introduction to it. And I guess, you know, in other states, you're probably right, though. I mean, it's not like just because those states have phenomenal, better than average deer, you still have average deer hunters there. You know? Yeah. It's interesting. So you, I guess, when were you hunting as a kid?
Well, it's kind of interesting. Yes, but my dad passed away when I was like 8 years old. And I didn't have anybody around me that hunted. Now, I had the passion to hunt, or I had it in my blood. I wanted to hunt. Right. But I didn't have any mentor for me. And so it got to be, you know, back then it was 14 before you could gun hunt, I believe.
Yes. You could bow hunt at 12, and 14 was gun hunt.
But I remember, you know, my mom won't listen to this, but, you know, we had a gun rack in the basement, you know, and it had a 20 gauge on it, it had a 30-06 on it, it had a pellet gun on it, it had a BB gun on it.
Right.
She would never know what gun I had when I walked out the back.
She just saw you grab a gun.
Oh, he's got a gun, he's going out the back. Yeah, it might be a 30-06, but she wouldn't have known any different. And I did do that. I mean, that 30-06, but I would take the shotgun out.
Right.
You know? I remember sitting on a fence line during deer season. I was probably 10 or 12 years old. I don't know. Sitting there. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was sitting there with a single shot Hercules, Sears and Roebuck Hercules, you know, hammer type single shot 20 gauge with a slug in it, waiting for a buck to come or a deer to come.
Yeah.
You know, fortunately, it never did, because I mean, I just wanted to hunt, you know.
Right.
And so anyhow, so yes, but it was, you know, as a kid, it was primarily, you know, bunny hunting. You know, my very first shotgun was an H&R, single shot 20 gauge.
Yeah.
And, but we had a lot of rabbits, and so it was rabbit hunting. It was pheasant hunting back when you had pheasants, you know, and squirrel hunting. I remember, you know, just couldn't wait until it seemed like it was like the 20th or something, like 15th or something of September, and going out squirrel hunting, you know, and I'd do all this stuff by myself, you know. So.
Don't you find it amazing that like your mom just saw you just grab a gun and walk out the door, and she never, I guess, went into like a panic mode? It just seems like that's the standard anymore. Like, oh my God, my kid's got a gun. You can't have that gun. What are you doing? You know?
Yeah.
So I know it's just amazing.
I mean, if she knew that I had the gun I had, she might say something.
But even then, it wasn't that like that moment of panic, I guess. And maybe that's not with every parent, but it just seems like that's the trend, that like any young kid, that whether they're a hunter or non-hunter, like if you see them walking around with a gun, everybody kind of just like goes into this like panic state for some odd reason. But I guess, you know, it's just. kind of one of those things.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So you started out as a gun hunter then?
Yeah. The first couple deer ever, I didn't shoot a buck until, I don't know, I was probably well into my 20s.
Yeah.
But, I shot a doe or two the first, couple years type of thing. And that was back, and probably shouldn't have been shooting does back then. I mean, you got one doe tag, you know, I think, and we didn't see very many deer. I mean, it was always an event just to see a deer track.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, you know. And now that part of the Michigan is, Ingham County, Eaton County,
gosh.
those Jackson County, those are all great.
Those
counties,
are the states. If you want to shoot a state record deer, those are the states, or those counties to be in.
But I always wanted to move north because when I started dating my wife, they had their family. She had an uncle that lived in Lakeview.
Okay.
And, which would be, I think it was Mecosta County.
Yep.
And there was deer all over the place.
Right.
I mean, hundreds and hundreds of deer all over the place at nighttime. We'd go out, spotlighting or whatever. You would see 300 deer in the field, wouldn't see a bone on it, on any of their heads.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
But it was like, I want to come north. And so when I started with Purina, and, shortly thereafter, when I started with Purina, they wanted me to take over in northern Michigan. I thought, here's my chance. And so we moved. We looked around at quite a few different cities, but we ended up in Clare.
Yeah.
And
centrally located.
Yeah. It was on the south end of my district, but we went to a United Brethren church down in Mason. So the Browns Corners was United Brethren. So we knew the pastor there. So it was one of those things where it was a good fit for us to come here, and we were really blessed that we did. I mean, we feel like this is. I don't even remember where I used to live. This is home.
Sure. Yeah.
And of course, from our kids, Dan and Sam and Caitlin. I mean, this is their home.
Right.
So But so we were real fortunate because we ended up in a place because we, early 90s, you'd go out on Browns Road on 3J Dairy and that's right down through there. You would see 300 or 400 deer standing out in the field. Wouldn't see very many horns, but you'd see a lot of deer.
Yeah, Thad and I were just out here a couple weeks ago and we were out looking for turkeys. He was wanting to get some turkey footage and stuff, and we come up on Cornwell Road there, and I'm not kidding you. There was 300 plus deer standing out there, and I was just like, it just blows my mind the amount of deer that are in that area and stuff. So I mean, it's fantastic. But I mean, you could go 30 minutes south and not see anything.
Right,
a few deer. So it's kind of wild.
Yeah, we're pretty fortunate where we're at right now there because I have that 160 that I lease, and then my son-in-law has 120, and then his dad has 120, and we're all right next to each other.
Yeah, that makes it really nice.
So we're starting to see some good deer. You were saying that 130-inch deer is a great deer. It is, but we're seeing every year we're getting a sprinkle. I've scored. In the last 5 years, I haven't missed a year that I haven't scored 160-inch deer somewhere in the Clare area.
In our area. Yeah. That's fantastic.
So every year we're getting that kind of quality deer. So those 130s turn into the 140s, 150s because, you get enough of them. They're just just the way it is, they're going to sneak through, Yeah,
and I know we were talking about this when you first got here, how it might take the older generation, let's just say maybe the 70s, 80s, late 60-year-olds, for them to pass for that, I guess, that mindset to kind of change from like shoot whatever, to like let them grow, let them get to a certain age and stuff like that. I don't know. That's just kind of my theory behind it because, my dad growing up, like he just shot a buck. Didn't matter if it was a spike or a 4-point. And if you shot a nice 100-inch 8-point, my gosh, that was the greatest thing ever. So I don't know if that's what it's going to take to really get that sort of mindset to grow a bigger deer.
It's coming. It's coming. I mean, they are coming, and it's in our area. We have a lot of deer, so I love to kill deer.
Sure.
And so I was telling someone this today. I said, if it wasn't for what we lease, if it wasn't for the fact that it's got so many deer that we got to kill off does.
Yeah,
which
for sure.
We kill 20 some does every year.
I mean, and that's a huge part of it too.
That if it wasn't for that, I don't know if I would lease it because. The bucks are great. I mean, but that's just I love to kill deer, and so and because we eat a lot of deer,
right?
It's pretty well. We do have some beef, but we have pretty much all venison is what we do most of our cooking on. But I kill them, give them away, and the butcher shop always has a list of people that need deer, and I donate a lot of those deer. So that's the fun part of it. It's fun to go out with the bow and know every time I could shoot a doe. I could shoot a deer every time out if I wanted to.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And so that's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's important to shoot those does.
It is.
That's how you can
area,
grow.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure. Like I was saying, that area where we saw like 300 deer in one field, if you're not shooting at least 25%,
right? Yeah,
like you're not doing yourself any favors.
And we'll take off. We take off 20, 22, 23. The one to the north, he'll have some Amish come in and hunt late season, and so they'll take off typically 30.
Yeah.
And then to the south, maybe they'll take off 5 or 6, and now that my son-in-law is there, my 2 grandsons, they're I think 11 and 9, I think, or 12 and whatever. They're in that range. They're killers, man.
Yeah, that's awesome.
They've killed between the 2 of them. I bet you they probably killed, I don't know, 25 deer in their lifetime, and they're 12 and 9.
That's crazy.
12 and 10 or whatever they are.
Yeah.
And so they're killers, and so we do a pretty good job with that. But I say that so that if let's say we take off of that, let's say it's two sections, 2 square miles.
Okay.
Let's say we take off 70 does, between everybody in the area. You go to the next year, you would not know that we
wouldn't know you even touched them.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
So
that's crazy.
So.
Let me ask you this about, like you were saying that your grandkids they've killed that many deer. Do you think that by letting them shoot that many deer that they still appreciate each and every one of them? I know a lot of people, like, we all would love to see our kids and our grandkids or whatever, shoot like a huge buck. Mm-hmm. Do you think that is detrimental if you were to let a younger kid go out and just shoot a giant deer rather than, say, shoot whatever they get excited about?
Yeah. You want to get controversial, huh?
I don't care. I mean,
I've never been. I'll say it this way: I've never been a big fan of the youth season from the standpoint of the youth season of killing a buck. And it's not because they're taking the buck away from me.
Sure.
I could care less. Care less. I think you develop a young hunter by opportunity,
correct?
Not by killing a huge buck.
Sure.
I think there's. I mean, and again, I don't have any scientific data, but I think there's more kids that say, hey, if I can't hunt in September and I've shot 130, 140 inch deer, the first couple of years, they could be 5 years old, 7 years old and kill that deer.
I know.
Maybe when they get a little older, they appreciate it. So, but even let's say they're 15 years old or 14 years old, I just don't think that they try to make that sound like that's going to be bringing your next generation of hunters.
Correct.
It's going to expand you're going to continue to bring more people into the hunting by allowing them to do that. And I don't think that's the case. I think letting them have, and then they change it, so this
coming year, it's doe only. Yeah.
And I think that's fantastic because, I couldn't hunt until I was 14.
Correct. You could bow hunt at 12.
But back then you didn't even nobody bow hunted.
Right. Yeah. And it was recurve only or exactly. A very, very primitive compound bow.
Yeah, right. And so, I had to wait till 14. Did I have any less passion to hunt?
Yeah.
No, man. Yeah. I wanted to hunt. I couldn't. I remember my stepdad going out and hunting. Him and his family going out hunting when I was 13 years old, and I was sick to my stomach, thinking, "Man, I just want to go kill a deer. I want to be part of that."
Right.
So I waited until I was 14. Other than telling about my mom taking my gun out the back door, but I waited until 14, and it didn't slow me down, and it didn't.
No.
It didn't keep me from getting into the outdoor. I'm one of these people. I don't worry about recruitment. Of course, my grandsons are but they're passionate about
right.
it. It's in their blood.
It's in their blood.
And I'm a big fan or a big believer. It's either in your blood or it's not in your blood.
Yeah.
And not that you can't recruit somebody that's not in their blood, but they'll still go do it. There's a lot of that happening on opening day. I mean, there's a lot of tradition that people will go north and set it, go out and set in their blind, but they don't really have a passion to hunt. They have a passion to get with their buddies and go to deer camp.
No, and I do love that still, too.
Yeah, I do, too. I think that's awesome. I think that's needed. And I think that's part of the tradition of Michigan. That's why I think Michigan is so special. And but I don't think that recruitment is based off of shooting a big buck. I think recruitment is off of opportunity, and I think recruitment is also based on if it's in your blood, it's in your blood.
Yeah, for sure. I think when it comes to the youth hunts and stuff, as a parent or as a mentor or whatever, if you just started out saying, okay, we're just going to shoot a doe, and get them excited about shooting a doe, the passion is still going to be the same, whether it's a doe or a buck. If they don't know any different, you know what I mean? It's so much about shooting a big buck anymore that young kids, they don't even know the trials and tribulations of it.
Right. Yeah. Well, Dan was, I don't know exactly, but he was probably 14 or 15 when the first youth hunt was established in Michigan. And I wouldn't let him shoot a buck,
right?
And I wouldn't let him use a gun.
Yeah.
And that was illegal the first year, which we didn't know that. You were supposed to use a gun.
You had to use a gun.
But we went out with the bow, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty certain that's correct. But after that, I think that they allowed it. But the first year you weren't supposed to. But then after that, Dan, he didn't want to shoot it. He wanted to shoot either a really good buck or no buck, type of thing. And I remember during the bow season. Now again, this is off of the youth season going into the regular season. I remember at times I would say, shoot that nice 6-point. No, I want an 8-pointer bigger. So he had of course listened to all my seminars that I'd put on and all me talking. And back then I was even a little bit more passionate to the point of probably not being a very good. Maybe shaming people at times, by saying, not necessarily going out and shaming somebody, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
wouldn't temper my opinion in front of a room, the type of a thing.
Sure.
And so I'm not that way anymore as far as from the deer hunting side. But so he'd listened to it enough that he wasn't afraid to do it because he thought Dad was going to be upset. He was kind of ingrained in him, and so he didn't want to shoot that deer unless. And I remember I leased 80 acres for $100. I heard about it at a basketball game, and I knew the guy that owned it. Well, I knew his grandpa. I knew him, but I didn't know his grandpa. But his grandpa had it for lease. I went and knocked on his door. He said, "Yeah, I'll lease it to 80 acres." It was a big hay field with a little bit of woods in the back, and gave him $100 and leased that. I probably 3 or 4 years. But anyways, this was again before cell phones. We had two-way radios, and I had to go to I don't know if I had to go to Sam's volleyball game or something. I couldn't hunt that night, but Dan wanted to hunt. So I took him out to the property. Again, I mean, I don't know if he's probably 15, 16 years old, whatever it was. I don't know. He might have
couldn't drive anyway.
No, he couldn't drive. So he was probably 14, 15, probably 14 years old. Yeah. Took him out there, dropped him off. He had to stand on his back. He's 14 years old, stand on his back, bow in his hand, and a two-way radio. And he said, "I'm just going to go back to the corner." I know. I thought, look at a tree that I was thinking about. Anyways, so I left him there, took off, went back to the game or whatever I had to go to. Come back at dark, he's sitting in the front yard of this person's house that was right off the edge of that property, and I rolled down the window. I said, "What are you doing sitting here already?" Because it was kind of like that golden hour.
Sure.
He says, I shot my buck, and I said, "You did?" So he had gone out there, put his stand up. It was a lock-on stand with screw-in pegs.
Pre-light stands.
Oh yeah, this is a
These
lock-on.
Are steel.
Yeah, probably was a lock-on, actual lock-on stand with the screw-in pegs.
Yep.
And in the corner where he thought the buck come out, it was a nice 8-point. Probably we got it mounted. It didn't quite make 100 inches, but it was like 96 inches or something like that.
I mean, giant.
And, right? Yeah. And did it all himself. So and again, that to me, he had the passion. He's always had the passion, and he still has the passion. I lost him to Iowa.
And I was going to bring that up. I was curious that if that's what took him there was the deer hunting.
Yeah. So we back in those days. I started going out of state hunting because I was on that QDMA bandwagon and went to all the meetings. We had that special area for a 4 or 5 period time. It was a scientific, test that the DNR did, and they kind of screwed us over at the end. Didn't allow it to go 5 years. That's a whole other story. But typical normal DNR stuff that still happens to this
still
day.
happening.
And anyhow, so I got irritated. So I thought, we went out to North Dakota the first time, and saw some really great bucks, whitetail and mule deer. I ended up shooting like 110-inch 8-point. And that kind of hooked me, and I said, "Well, I'm just gonna go out of state if I can."
Yeah.
And I went out of state every year after that. Always would be in some state. Usually knock on door. We didn't ever go we never leased. We never went with an outfitter.
Yeah, you didn't have to.
One of those things. Anyhow, but we started going to Iowa, and think in 1992.
Okay.
And back then,
you didn't even have to have points.
No,
did
you put in for the draw. Well, yeah, you still did, but you put in for the draw, and we got drawn. The first 2 years we put in, got drawn. Yep. 2 years in a row. And then after that, it was every other year.
Okay.
We got drawn. And then after that, it was every 3 years. And then, it just
so
kept
on and so forth.
Right, yeah. Back when I think the tag, the first year we went there, I think the tag was $160 or something like that, or maybe $250.
Yeah, either way.
Whatever it was.
Compared to what it is now.
And so Dan was, he would be able to correct me, but it was like I took him out as maybe his freshman year or something like that.
Okay.
Of high school, and then it was like, so it was 2 years later. I think it was like every other 2 years. So at the third year, we got drawn again. Well, then he ended up shooting 150 some inch buck.
Remember that deer?
And that's a whole other story. But it was a great story. It was fun. It was awesome. And so he shoots that, and so then he worked for me because I started my own business in 2003, and so he worked for me. And so all of a sudden one day he come to me and he says, "Well, I've been looking online," and he says, "I got a job at I think it was called Fin, Feather, and Fur or something like that." It was a J Sporting Goods oriented type store, in Iowa.
Okay.
And I said, "Man, I think he was 20, I don't know, 25 or 6, I don't know what it was, something like that at the time." And I told him, I said, "Man, if I was your age and know what I know about Iowa, I probably already would have been out there, And he'll be listening to this, and he's heard me say this a bazillion times. But I told him, I said, "Okay, you're going to go out there. I know you're going to find some girl, And I said, "Well, here's the deal. When you find her," I says, "the more acreage her family has, the uglier she can be." Well, he ended up
That's a good standard.
He ended up marrying a gal that was just drop dead gorgeous with no land. So he did do what I said, but
it's all right. You got to there's a give and take there, There's a give and take.
Yeah. So anyways, he's been out there since since then. He's got he's been married for 15 years, something like that, and he's got 5 kids.
Yeah.
They live in Iowa, well, in Marion, Iowa, but he's killed several 160s on public ground.
Yeah, we stay in touch throughout the deer season just to kind of check in on each other, see how things have been going. And he's got some really beautiful deer.
Limited time to hunt.
Well, he's got a lot of kids.
Yeah, so
young kids.
He's gotten it done with limited hunting out there, and I mean it's not like it's easy, but he's pretty smart. He's a very astute, he does a lot of, like a lot of people do, a lot of scouting on X and going in, okay, I think this looks like a pinch point, and put up, and boom.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? Like, obviously when you started, none of that stuff. I mean, we didn't even have phones we just walked. I mean, and I was always proud of myself because I was just willing to outwork the next guy, and you had to, because you didn't have any other option other than go out there and either go out early, say in the spring or whatever, to scout ground, or show up in the fall during season and just walk till you found what you thought was a hot sign, and then go from there.
Yeah. So it's and that's what I love about. I mean, that's why when we go, I don't have a problem going on public ground. My buddy is not real keen on that because he seems like he's always an unlucky guy that somebody wants to walk in on him, or they're walking a dog.
There's always that.
Something like that happens. So he'd rather have private, and we've done pretty good in Illinois, knocking on doors, getting private, even to this day. We do.
Yeah.
And but I don't mind public because I just like to. Mark my buddy is always getting on me because I never hunt more than one time in a spot, pretty much. And it's not because I have this, I'm only going to hunt that tree one time because it's going to mess up the. No, I get tired of looking at the same thing. You know? And I'll be hunting this, in the area, and it's not like I won't hunt a tree twice in a row type of a thing, or 3 times in a row. But if the deer are there, they're there, and I'm going to hunt it. But I just love the challenge of figuring out a chunk of property.
For sure.
And to me, that's as fun as killing them. I've had challenges the last few years out of state when I've gone out of state to killing them. I keyed up one to show you. I don't know if I ever told you that story about the giant that I.
No, but what better time than now to talk about it? So this was in Illinois. Paint this picture for me. Time of year, where at, and this and that.
Yeah. So we always go the first week of November. We typically when we go out, we leave like the 28th, 29th of October, and we'll hunt through the 12th. Something like that of November.
Pretty typical.
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, I mean, I don't care what they say, moon phases, all that kind of stuff that you can. Read up on and blow your brain out of sorts, thinking, if I go
tons of information, overload.
If you leave Halloween and you go that first, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th of November, that's going to be the best time every year, anywhere you go, in the upper Midwest.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the heat can mess you up. Obviously, the moon phase can mess you up. All those things. But still, I'm still going to be there 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. Those are the best times.
Yep.
And so this is the 4th of November. And it's on property that we just knocked on the door and got permission. Matter of fact, I had just got permission on the property that I was setting up on that morning, and the day before. And all it was how it is out there. It's these drainages.
Yep. It's just a thin ditch, basically.
Well, this was a major drainage.
Okay.
With 6 inches of water in it. I never know how big how they get so big, because every time I'm there, there's never any water in them. But these are cavernous things. I mean, they're like you're dropping down 10, 12, 15 foot down into them, Anyhow, so and the only woods is on both sides of that drainages, and it's it's kind of snaking its way through the field, but so I got permission. That morning I went out. The morning before this opportunity happened, I went out and I just went on I didn't even take a stand because I didn't know where I was going to go, And so I think I'm just going to still hunt through it and see what happens. And I got out there and it was just happening. I mean, the deer were going on both sides of this drainage, and I saw 12 different bucks that morning. Nothing major, but they were just, and that's what they were doing. They were running these edges back and forth. I was seeing does too, and
just cruising for a hot doe.
They were just cruising. So that was the 3rd of November, and so I ended up putting a stand up, on this one tree that overlooked the edge of this field, and it was where I could shoot across this, this 40, 50 yard, trees, and just one of those things. I was like, looks good. I'm going to put it here. So actually, it was a climber, and it was a kind of a double tree. So I had to get the climber up higher to get
high enough into a single.
Yeah. And so anyway, so I go in that next morning. Well, I actually hunted there that night. Saw like 125 incher, and could have shot him, but I didn't. And anyhow, so the next morning I go out there. It was one of those great mornings, that's cold and still and crisp, and just those ones that you love to have.
You dream about.
Yeah, you dream to have. Now they're always not the greatest for getting drawn back on deer and stuff. But again, you get away with a lot of stuff in Illinois where you can't in Michigan. But anyhow, so it's like 9 o'clock in the morning. I hadn't seen a deer. And across this field, probably a 300-acre field, and there was a little neck of woods that, the drainage went out into the field and came back in. So there's a little neck of woods that came out into that field. And then there was a farm on the other side. And then he had cattle there, but looked like he hadn't had cattle in this one big pen. It was just all overgrown. And I'm sitting there looking, all of a sudden, boom, 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 2 of them jump out of that trashy area. And I got the binoculars on, one's in the 160s, the other one's in the 140s. And they're together, and they're coming to me. Now, I say they're coming to me. They got 400, yards to come.
Right.
They could go anywhere, but they're coming my direction, and I'm thinking, that's good. I'm looking at them with binoculars. I'm saying, I'll kill either one of them.
Did you rattle or grunt? It was just all natural movement.
They were coming to me, so there was
no reason to even talk to them.
Yeah. I was just going to see what they did. And they did. They make their way out across the field until I couldn't see them because they went into that little neck of woods. And I'm waiting, nothing. All of a sudden, around the outside edge of that woods comes the smaller of the 2. And I'm looking at him going, he's in the 140s. And I'm thinking, I'm going to shoot him. I'll shoot him if he comes. I know that one's in the 160s, but I don't see him.
Right.
And so I watch this sucker, and he's following the field edge. Well, now if he follows that field edge all the way around, he's going to do a big old horseshoe. But if he feels that horseshoe comes all the way, he's going to come right underneath me. And he's working his way, hitting scrapes and rubbing trees, and
just putting on a show,
all
man.
the way around.
Yeah.
I'm watching him, binoculars, and the whole time I'm thinking, I'll shoot him. And every once in a while I'd say, yeah, I'll shoot him. Look at him again. Okay.
He's still big.
Yeah. And so he's coming right down the edge, and now I'm just on super focus because, like I said, it was one of those quiet mornings. And I was in this double tree, and so here he is at 30 yards coming right down the shoulder of this field. And I was thinking about shooting him there, but I'm thinking, he's going to come right in front of me. So I was waiting. And so I end up, he kind of goes behind the trunk of the right tree, the double tree on the right. And I'm at full draw, and he's not coming into the hole, and not coming in the hole, not coming. And I'm at full draw. I'm thinking, where's the sucker at? So then I lean back. And okay, there's his hind end, and all of a sudden he starts moving. So I lean back forward. He comes in there. He's 25 yards. Stops. I shoot him, and I hit him back a little bit, like last rib type of thing. And he takes 3 or 4 bounds. So I'm like, good. So you got this. Shoot 3 or 4 bounds. I'm looking, and he's standing there, and he's all hunched up, and I'm thinking, at worst, it's liver, and I'm thinking, I probably ought to get another arrow. He's probably 35 yards. I probably get another arrow, and I start to get another arrow, and I look to my right, and right there
is the 160s.
No.
Oh, gosh.
It's a different buck.
Oh, my gosh.
The 160 was wide and heavy. This one was a freaking giant with all kinds of crap on him, and he's standing right there. He's looking at the buck that I shot.
You just shot,
and he's looking at him like, hey, what's going on? What's going on? I'm going to show you. Like, why is that thing acting the way he's acting? So I'm thinking, well, I know this one's dying. I can't shoot him. I pulled out my phone. I started videotaping him.
Oh my Lord. You're going to have to send me this because I'd love to show this. Because because we're going to do this and put this on YouTube, I want to show this deer. This is, oh my God.
Yeah.
That's a booner.
Yeah. Well, I know he was a booner because I'll tell you the rest of the story.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
So he was one of those things where I'm just looking at him and going, oh my goodness.
You had no idea he was there the entire time. Where did he come from?
He must have come right out of that woods, and he was coming right down the shoulder of that field.
But you were watching.
I was so concentrated on that buck that I just I've been hunting for years. I always take another look around. Especially when I'm out of state, because you just don't know.
Right.
I always take another gander around, making sure. Because this one was a nice buck, but he was not that.
Not that.
And he wasn't that. The other one. The other one was big. And so, I was sick. And so he ends up coming right between and he stood there 25 yards looking at that deer. And that one, finally, he laid down and he died. And he ended up moving on down, because it was does down. He ended up moving down the field. 10 minutes later, he was right back in front of me again. Gosh. And there was nothing I could do, obviously. And so I just let him go. And I figured, well, at least I got a good story out of him, and I got a good video of him.
A little humble pie.
Yeah, no, I was sick. I was. Thing of it is, the buck that I shot wasn't even 140. I mean, I had deer goggles on, must be, because he was a nice buck.
Just looked great.
Was not. I don't know why I thought he was so good, but he wasn't as good. I was still happy with him. Don't get me wrong. It was not. It's just hard to be happy when that one was.
Yeah, for sure.
So it gets into December. I'm at home, obviously, now. And so the guy that I got permission on, I text him and I says, hey, do you know of anybody that shot, and I counted that, and he had 14 scoreable points on him. I said, a huge buck in that area had, 14 scoreable points, which he didn't understand what that was, but, he just, yeah, so-and-so shot one. I don't know him real well, but, he says, I might be able to get a hold of him and see if I can get a picture of it. I said, yeah, that'd be great. So 2 days later, I get this picture. Sure enough.
There it is.
So I got a hold of the guy.
Okay.
And text him, and I says, hey, just thought you might want to see this video that I shot of him, and shared it with him, and he got back with me, and I says, hey, would you mind when we come back down next November, would you mind if I come and score it? I'd love to score it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was real nice. And yeah. So that next November, we were back at the same place, and I texted him, and I said, so-and-so, this is what, he said, oh, yeah, I remember. I'll just bring it to your camp. Where's your camp at? So he brought it there. This buck had all of the fur rotting off its forehead, and the ears.
He didn't do anything with it.
No. Oh, and that's so typical in Iowa, in Illinois. I've seen that so many times.
You just see him laying out in the back shed out and sitting on a 50-gallon drum or something.
So I ended up scoring that. That buck scored 168, but he had broke off from my pictures, he broke off 5 or 6 inches of he had two flyers, and in the brow tine, part of the brow tine was broke off, and so he scored 168. So he probably was a 172, 173 buck.
Would that have been your biggest buck to date?
Yeah. So it's one of those things. I've killed some nice ones. I've killed some several 160s.
Yeah.
In Illinois. And Illinois has always been a great state to me. I've done Iowa a ton, but I've never killed a huge one in Iowa.
Right.
I should have. But you listen to podcasts, and I listen to a lot of them, a lot of hunting podcasts and stuff, and all the success these guys have, and other than the old the guy that does a podcast over Beale City, I can't think of
Aaron Blasey.
Yeah,
fall podcast.
Aaron, yep. He'll do my big mistake.
Yeah.
Those are fun to listen to, because every time I listen to
you can definitely relate.
Yeah, and
one giant mistake. Yeah.
So this I know I just ramble on here, but so this particular property, I killed a 162 out of that same vicinity, probably within 200 yards of where I didn't shoot this one. And so 2 years ago, I go there, we call it the park. It's just like a convergence. It's an old shut down road that they shut down 15 years ago. So you can still see the pavement, but the trees have all grown up through it.
Sure.
That goes a quarter of a mile, and then the new permission I had is another quarter of a mile. But then there's a little creek that kind of tees into it. And we always called that the park. It's just a great transition.
It's a perfect spot.
It's where I shot the 162, and so that 2 years ago, I messed up on a buck the night before, and I have killed good bucks, so I tell all these missed stories, but I messed up on a buck the night before, and probably 2 miles away, and so I was bumming on that one, and but I told my buddy, I'm going to go back to the park. It's always been good.
Yeah.
The thing about this park is you hardly see any deer.
But that's always the right deer.
But you see good deer.
Yeah.
You might go 4 hunts without seeing a picking deer, and then all of a sudden a giant.
Yeah.
So it's a windy night. This is 2 years ago. It was like the 8th of November, And I know it was the 8th of November because I've killed a lot of bucks on the 8th of November out of state. Anyhow, I'm sitting there dinking around on my phone, and it's super windy. And I have a climber. And again, I put a climber up, and I still use climbers. And
they still kill deer.
Yeah. And so I'm sitting there, and it's not like I'm engrossed in my phone. But, I look, and then I'll look, once it's windy, it should be looking a lot more. But I'll, look around, and I'd look back down. So I did that. I'm looking down at my phone. I look up. Here's a ginormous deer coming right at me. And he doesn't know. I mean, he's all by himself.
Yeah.
He's not spooked. He's not, and because it's so windy.
Just searching.
And there's a lot of honeysuckle in there, so he was just moseying,
picking around through it. On the pods and stuff.
And he's coming, and I have him at 25 yards, but he's quartering towards me, and I just don't like that shot. And so I'm at full draw. And I have it pinned right on his shoulder. If you want to shoot him front, picking that spot.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm thinking, he doesn't know I'm here. He's not distracted by any other deer.
Yeah.
He's just feeding. Boom, I let down. And I'm thinking, I just let him come. And so he does. He's coming. Now the wind was blowing so it was crossing my face and going over
your left shoulder. Okay.
And he's off to he's coming in this way. So now he's 17 yards, 18 yards, still quartering towards me, but not quite a steep angle, which I was trying to do, putting it right in the pocket.
Sure.
Now, and so I'm thinking, this is good. I'm going to kill him. This is a 180.
Oh my
deer.
gosh.
I mean, he is. I don't have a picture. I wish I would have got my phone out. He was the biggest deer I've ever seen on the hoof. I mean, he had 12, 13 inch. He was a 5x6. I mean, I studied him. I watched him. He was a 5x6. He had. His one side was a full 6, nice 6, and he actually was a 6x6, but his on his right side, his it would be G5, I guess.
Yeah.
Was inch and a half, something like that.
Right.
So I called him a 5x6, but just every time, just like just a beautiful,
like the cell phone. How many bars you have on your cell phone?
Yeah. I mean, just gorgeous. And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna kill him. Pull back and put it on him and let it loose. And there was and this wasn't even it wasn't a limb. It was and I didn't know what happened until the next day. I went back, got in the same tree because I couldn't figure out what happened.
Right.
And when it wasn't windy, and what it was just, how a leaf will have a stem on it.
Yep.
It was the stems. The stems were, and they were just kind of going like this. Obviously, I mean, I didn't see it, but I mean, the next day they were blowing. Still, and they were right there, and it must have caught my arrow.
Just enough.
The arrow actually hit him, not the broadhead. The arrow kicked sideways and slapped him. No. And I wish it would have missed him, because if it would have missed him, he wouldn't even have known.
He probably, because it was quite windy.
It was so windy.
Yeah.
But the fletching actually smacked him on the shoulder, and he kind of jumped back a little bit, and he looked around, and he didn't he run off, but I was so stunned that, I mean, if I would have grabbed the arrow, maybe I could have got, but by the time I thought that, he was just walking back to where he came from.
Yeah.
And
Did they get you shook up? Like when you see a buck, what you consider a big buck, do you still get like buck fever, or do you get shook up at all, or
it's a weird thing, Josh. Yes and no and yes. I'll say it that way. I've always been very focused when I'll get kind of that excited feeling when I'm watching them from a distance or whatever.
Sure.
But when it comes to the shot,
you just get locked in.
So focused.
Yeah.
Until this year, I tell you, I struggled this year on a 130-inch deer. I got here in Michigan. I got ate up for the first time, and I don't know. I'm 64 years old.
What caused it?
We stayed, like I was telling you earlier before we started. I always told my buddy, if we have 3 130s running around, I'm 64, he's 64. We're getting slowing down.
Sure.
We still have the passion.
Still got the fire.
Yep. But we, to hook a trailer on and going down and doing all that kind of stuff. Before it was just no problem. Now we got kind of getting into that old, bones
it just takes
hurt.
time.
Yes. And so, I said, we could put so much work in on that property that, and then we're gone for the prime time.
Right.
So I said, we get a couple, 2, 3, 3 130s or better. Let's think about staying home. And so this last year we did. We had 4 bucks that would go between 125 and 145 running around on the property. And it was we had a blast. And so I hit one like the 17th of October. I seen him the night before. He was a 135 buck.
Yeah.
And tall.
No, we're in Michigan now, right? This is last year in Michigan.
This is in Michigan.
What happened to the deer in Illinois last year?
Well, it was 2 years ago.
Okay, 2 years ago.
The 180.
Yeah, that you hit with the side of the arrow.
I don't know because he went off and I hunted that spot the rest of the time I was there because I'm thinking he would just out wander around. Maybe he'll wander back.
Sure.
Never did. And I talked to that guy that killed the big one that I passed up on.
Yeah.
And I talked to him and I said, have you ever seen this one? I described it to him and he knows all the deer in the area.
Okay.
He's one of these guys. He's a crossbow guy and he just goes anywhere. He's kind of, he's a local guy. So he kind of, people know him. He's going to just go wherever he wants to go. And so he knows every deer. Well, I told him about it. He says, I haven't seen it. And matter of fact, he texted me early in the spring that next year saying, so where was this at exactly? I'm looking for sheds, and I told him exactly where it's at. He never found the sheds or anything. So I don't know if this buck just was cruising,
just
probably
came
from 2
somewhere.
miles away, 3 miles away,
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened to him. I wish I did know. I wish I had at least a picture of him,
Yeah.
But anyhow.
Yeah.
So last year.
Yeah, going back to last year now.
So I had a 135. The next night I said, I seen where he was coming through and I'm thinking, and I do that all the time. You see him, get the latest information and I make a move.
Right.
I just do. I mean,
You're not one to sit back and watch for too long.
No.
Okay.
I'll make a move. I make a move right away and it's always pretty much worked out.
Yeah.
And so I made a move. I got out there early that day and, for early season, I was out there, I think by, 2 o'clock or something,
Okay.
Put a stand up, put a lock on up, and was watching the area of the bedding area where I was thinking he was going to come from.
Yeah.
And, well, he came from that area, but he came from the swamp side, and so he came up right behind me. And all of a sudden, I'm hearing a footstep, and I look down on my left, and he's like right underneath
right at
my
the base of the tree.
And all I see is a part of an antler, and it looked pretty good. So I'm thinking, well, it's a buck, So then I leaned way out. I said, holy crap, it's him. And he's right underneath me. And so I'm thinking, I got to get stood up. I got to get my bow, get turned around, all this kind of stuff. And he got up to the tree and probably smelled where I was standing there, putting the sticks on, all that kind of stuff. And he just didn't feel comfortable, and he started walking back down the hill. Well, I had him at, 20 yards, and but there's just too much stuff to shoot through. So he made a little button hook, and he was coming broadside down. And again, I'm probably 22, 23 foot up in the tree.
Okay.
And this was down a hill, down towards the swamp.
So it's
I'm probably 35 foot above you, at least. And he comes in, hits the scrape, and he's got a step, 2 or 3 steps further, and he'll be wide open. He does. I'm at full draw. I put it on him, and I hammered him. I mean, just bam, and he fell to the ground and rolled down the hill a little bit, got up, and he fell down again. And then I lost sight of him because he got behind the brush and went down into the swamp. I heard him fall in the creek, and I heard him get up, and all of a sudden quiet.
Was this a deer that you had prior knowledge of?
Well, the night before.
Okay.
Well, yeah, and I'd seen him late season, late summer. Okay. I didn't put any cameras out until hunting season. So, but I went out one night and just sat 200 yards away from one of my food plots.
So you had seen him.
And I'd seen him.
Yeah.
And I'd seen 2 shooters that night.
Yeah.
And so I knew there was some good ones there. And so anyhow, I'm thinking hurt him. I went with the heavy setup
Sure.
arrow. I'm shooting iron will 150 grain tip, so I'm probably shooting close to 600 grains, and it knocked him down. And,
right.
But it went quiet, so I'm kind of, you're never confident, but
unless you watch him fall.
Yeah. And so he went back and couldn't find any blood. And so I'm just going to go the next day. And there's a guy down in, I don't know if you know Andrew Curtis, but he's got a tracking dog, one of the best tracking dogs I've ever seen in my life, a Bavarian. And so I've unfortunately gotten to know him the last few years. Well, not just for me, but for other people.
Sure.
And Andrew's he's in Shepherd area, or starts with a B.
Breckenridge?
No, around Mount Pleasant.
Beale City?
No. Anyway, in that vicinity. I can't think of the name of the town. But anyhow, but he's a great guy. Anyway, so I called him up. I said, he said, well, I can't get there until like 11 o'clock the next day. I said, that's fine. His dog is that good. I didn't worry about it. We got on the track. He went the opposite direction I thought he was going to go, but he got out there. The dog got out there about, 200 yards and found a speck of blood, so we knew we were on him.
Right.
That thing did a big button loop. It never bled hard.
Okay.
And if you would have scraped all the blood up, you wouldn't have filled a thimble.
Wow.
But it was because of that dog we found the blood. And so, of course, like always, we backed off. We went 1.7 miles as far as the track goes in a big loop.
Yeah.
And about 7 or 8 days later, I got him in camera.
Okay.
And so, but
that's crazy.
That was the only time we got on camera. Never seen him again.
What do you think? You just hit him in that shoulder and just didn't get penetration.
The reason I went to the heavy setup was to
break through the shoulder.
Right. If I messed up and hit him where you don't want to hit him, it would get penetration. I thought I had enough angle since I was 35 feet above.
You would think.
You need 6 inches get into that chest cavity, whatever. But evidently didn't. And so I wasn't that. We started on buck fever type thing, but that I was very focused. So I didn't have any buck fever then. But then it goes into later in the season. We decided to stay home and chase those bucks. So my buddy had seen a really nice buck. He'd killed out, so we only shoot one buck.
Okay.
And so he is sitting on a food plot that I put in last year, and he's seen a nice buck, and he says, I think he's it could be in the 130s, and I said, well, we'll see if he comes back.
Yeah.
Tonight I'll go out there.
Sure.
And I get out there and get into one of my trees, and about, I don't know, it was early. It was like 4 o'clock. And this was like the 7th of November, something like that. Peak rut time. And I looked down, you got to look through the cedars thicket and look down at the bottom of the swamp. All of a sudden I seen a deer, put the binoculars up. It's him. And he's good 130. Yeah. Really nice, tall. And really tall, and he's had a big old basket rack, probably 18 inches wide.
Oh, wow.
And he's coming. And this food plot I have is a narrow food plot.
Okay.
And he's coming right to me. And he's about halfway there, and my heart is just kind of, and I'm confused.
What's wrong with me?
Yes. I haven't done that in a bazillion years.
Do you think it's because it was the deer that you had lost?
No, I knew it wasn't the same one that I.
Oh, this wasn't the same deer.
No,
okay. I was thinking this was the same deer.
No,
okay.
No, it's a completely different deer. But I don't know. But all of a sudden, and he was halfway to me, and I'm going, settle down.
Can't get my shit together.
Yeah, I'm saying it's just a stinking deer. What is your problem? I haven't had. Not that I don't get excited. It's not like it's a whole hum,
Right.
I've always get excited, but I've always just had that ability to
lock it in. Yeah.
And I was having to tell myself, that's a 130-inch deer. I've shot 160 pluses out of state. Yeah. And I think it might be just because I had screwed up on the one. We only shoot one buck. Yeah. And so I'm kind of feeling bad that I'm now getting to the point where I'm going to shoot really the second buck,
Sure.
and we got 3 guys in the lease, so there's another guy that hasn't killed one yet. So I think part of that maybe goes through your mind, and
Yeah.
I'm hogging it, type of thing. And he gets right up and 25 yards. I stop him, but the thing of it is, I meh, like that, and I stopped him, and it kind of startled him. I mean, he just
got him right on edge,
and he just he's turned and looked at me, but I was in a cedar tree, so I know he didn't pick me out. But that kind of startled me a little bit.
Sure.
And again, bow hunters got bazillion reasons about it. But 2 years ago, this year I went from using a single adjustable pin.
Okay.
For elk hunting.
Yep.
And I put it on for elk hunting 7 or 8 years ago, and I just had never changed it back to a 3. Yep. This year I thought I'm just going to go back to a 3 pin sight. And I pulled back. I pulled the 3rd pin. I was all summer long. I practiced coming up because I thought I'm going to try coming up instead of going down. Because if I'm going to err, I'm going to always err high.
Yep.
And so I'm thinking I'm going to go down, and it's super hard to go up. Well, just my old style came back, and I didn't fight it, so I'm come from the top. 30 yard. I mean, I have a 25, 35, 45.
Okay.
So the 45 gets over his back, gets down into his body. The 35 gets in his back, on his back, starts going down. The 25 got to the back, top of his back.
Cut it loose.
I shot. I knew I missed before the arrow, even probably the fletching left the brace, and I mean, he did go down, but even if he wouldn't have gone down, I would have maybe taken some air off. I flew him, and he spun and bounded off.
Isn't that the worst feeling though when you get that pin right there, and for whatever reason you just can't quite hold off?
I know, and it's saying you work all summer long shooting. And why do you want to get it over with so fast?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh no, I know exactly what you mean.
Why don't you say to yourself, I'm going to enjoy this. Yeah. I mean, many times I'll pull during the season if it's a doe. Usually I do it with those. I'll pull back
just if settle in on
and I just
them.
Settle it. I don't even want to shoot it. I'm just going to put my pin, and if I'm going to shoot it, that's where I just hold that pin right in that pocket, right in that pocket. And but for some reason I shot, and it was like. And I blame it on myself from, maybe that pin thing was different for me because I've always, for 7 or 8 years, I had
single
one pin,
yeah.
And I'm going back to a 1 pin this year. And I haven't changed it yet, but I'm going to. So I missed him. And, and Dan had killed one. He had killed one that the next morning.
Mm-hmm.
He had killed one in Iowa. Because that's the nice thing about texting.
Right.
You can be in 15 different states and talk to everybody the same morning.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
So
what's
cool.
the weather doing? And you know exactly what's going on.
So we have, we had my buddy, myself, and my other buddy on our lease, and then Dan was out hunting. Yeah. So we had 4 people on this group text.
It's the old 2-way radio setup.
Yeah. And so... he kills one, and I'm feeling great for him, and I'm thinking, doggone it, I should have had one last night, and it would have been so cool, And so he gets one, and so that night I'm debating on where I'm going to go, and I'm thinking, well, I didn't enjoy spooking that much. Maybe I'll just go back to that same spot. And so I'm getting my stuff around. This is like 12:30. I'm getting my stuff on. And my buddy's in the camper, and he said, "Well, where should I go?" And I think the wind was out of the southwest, out of the southeast, so it was kind of a funky wind that night, and for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, "Where should we go?" And he said, he asked me, and I said, "Well, I'd go what we call the BLT stand. I'd go to the BLT stand. It would be good for the wind, and who knows? I mean, there's some oaks there." I said, "Who knows?" So I'm getting my clothes on, and I'm out in the truck by the truck, and getting all the stuff out of my tub, and and I finally said, "No, I'm going to go to the BLT." And so I stuck my head in the thing, and I felt bad because I said, "Hey, I'm going to go to the BLT." Oh, okay. After I just had told him, you need to go there, and I said, I just can't get myself to go back to the same spot I missed that buck. Tonight, I said, I just don't want to go back there. I got to see something different, and so I did. I went out to the BLT, and I was sitting there at the BLT, and it's 4:00, and I just happened to turn around and look, coming from the clear cut. Is this 125? Well, it ended up being 126.
Yeah.
8-point, just a really nice 8-point.
Sure.
He come down underneath me, and I killed him, but I still didn't get a good set on it. I got fortunate. I hit him high, but I hit that. I mean, he exited out his lung on his left side.
Yeah.
Because I was such a steep angle.
Yep.
He was only like 11 yards.
Okay.
But I hit that artery next to his lung. I mean, as soon as the arrow hit him, blood was shooting out.
Oh,
so I knew he was dead.
Yeah.
And he went 40 yards and stood there and tipped over. And so it was a struggle. It was a struggle for me this year, and it seems like it's been a struggle the last 2-3 years. And it just amazes me that you can bow hunt as long as you do, and you've made every error possible.
Oh, yeah.
Pulling back and letting down, and then not check your knock, and then you go pull back, arrow falls off.
Yeah.
I mean, every one of those things I've done through the years. And you think you get 35 years into bow hunting, 40 years into
think you'd
bow
have
hunting,
it all figured out.
You think you've done everything. So, and then this was the last couple of years. It's just been like
comedy of errors.
I didn't watch where the branches or the little things in front of me. On the 180. I shoot that smaller buck and the 170 watt. I mean, it's just like, man, oh man, it's just like I'm a new learner again,
Yeah, but to have all those things happen though, just think about those are all great stories though.
Yeah.
I mean, if they were all successes, well then what would you talk about?
Yeah. Well, so I don't know what time you got here, but I could tell stories all the time. But so let me go step back to when we first started going out of state. So like I said, we went, my buddy, couple buddies and I, but one was my buddy from Sheboygan, John Everett, and him and I started going, and we started putting in for Iowa. Chuck Malson was one of them, and we had several guys. Rick Harris was another one. Anyhow, and we used to take 7 or 8 guys, you know, back in the day. And so, anyways, John and I had gone on several out-of-state hunts, and we just couldn't break the ice on a big buck. We'd see him, we'd mess up, whatever. We could shoot 110-inch, 120-inch, but we wanted a big one.
Right.
And so we get drawn for Iowa. And so this would be like 95, 96, something like that, in that range. 94 maybe. I think in 94. And we go to Iowa, and we have this property that we wanted to get permission on, pull in the guy's driveway, and he gave us permission. We backed out of his driveway, started coming down the road, and standing in the ditch is this huge buck.
Oh my gosh.
Now, again, this is a huge buck back in the 90s. So this was a 135-inch deer.
Yeah.
But he was a big body. And so, again, that was a ginormous buck.
Right.
That maybe not for Iowa even at that day.
Right.
But for a Michigan dude.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so he's standing there. He's got a doe laying down. And he's 25 yards off the road just standing there.
That's something.
And we'd go around, turn around, come back. We sat in the truck and watched him. And he's just standing there looking at us. And finally, the doe gets up, and they bound off. And this was like 123 acres, and it was they had planted trees, almost like a nursery, because they had some kind of government program. They get more money if they plant a tree. So this thing used to be 123 acres of farm ground that they turned into this big nursery. Maybe 15 years ago, because all these trees are 15, 20 foot tall. They're not very big around, but all put in lines,
straight lines.
And anyways, this buck goes off, and I said, we got to get into that property, And so, but the wind wasn't right, And so we had a couple other properties, and so I told John, I said, and we had one vehicle. I said, John, I'm going to take you, or you drop me off at this property. It was like 2 days later. The wind was right. And I said, I'm going to still hunt this property. Just to find out what it's like. This is before Onyx. You didn't have Google's maps.
Yeah, you just boots on the ground. That's what you had to do.
You had to. And so I'm just going to still hunt it. And I said, drop me off in the ditch, in a drainage ditch at daybreak.
Yeah.
And as soon as it breaks daylight, I'm going in. So I do. And he goes on. I know where he's going at this other property, probably 3-4 miles away. I go into this property at daybreak. I get in there, and I can hear deer running. I could hear deer grunting. And, I mean, I hadn't seen anything yet, but I could just hear the activity in there. And I'm just kind of still hunting my way through. All of a sudden, I mean, it was probably half hour after daybreak. All of a sudden, I could hear 2 bucks just crashing, hammering their antlers together. And it was just over this little ridge. Maybe this ridge was probably, I don't know, 50, 60 yards from the top. I was 50, 60 yards away from the top of the ridge. And I'm thinking, they got to be just on the other side of that ridge. And so I start running up this ridge, and I'm thinking, they sound, this is all happening as I'm running. I'm thinking, they sound like they're right over there. I'm going to get an arrow on my bow before I get to the ridge, pull the arrow out of the quiver, come over the top. My broadhead hits my string. Pow!
Oh, my gosh.
My bow blows up. And at the time I'm looking at it, I'm going, how do I solve this issue? There's no
solving that issue.
I mean, I blew up my bow right there. And so I thinking, well, I'm going to see what's there. I mean, they're still going at it. I get up to the top of the ridge. 25 yards away is that big buck, the 135, with another 135, and they're just going
hammering away.
25 yards away. I could have shot either one of them easy. And they all of a sudden, boom, they break up. The bigger one that we'd seen out by the road, he had brow tines that were probably, 8 inches long. He wins the fight, pushes off the other one, and he goes over the ridge. Now I got a blown up bow. I'm in Iowa in 1994. They don't have bows.
You're not going to a bow shop.
No. I have my bow kit, but I didn't. And I had a High Country. That was back when High Countries were. They used to be the
that was the bow. That was the premium bow.
It was at Jay's. It was their top seller for several years.
Yeah.
I didn't bring an extra string with me.
Well, why would you?
Right. And but not only that is I'm 4 miles away from John.
Oh my
God! Out in the middle of nowhere. And so I start, I go to the ditch.
The walk of shame.
Yeah, I go to the ditch. I put a bunch of trash on top of my bow, and I just start walking the road. And I know where I got to go. And so I walk about a mile to this farm, and I knock on the door, and it's a elderly lady and her daughter. And I told her what happened, that I needed a ride. I mean, if I could get a ride, that'd be great. She didn't want to give me a ride. The daughter wanted to give me a ride, so they finally gave me a ride. And I said, we got to go to so-and-so's place. They knew where that place was, obviously. Yeah. So we went to the farm. Well, now I get to the farm where John's at, but I have no idea where John's hunting.
Right.
But it's all drainages, so he's hunting and draining. So I get up, I get on the top of this field, this cornfield, the picked cornfield, and I start hollering, John! And nothing, John! And all of a sudden I hear, this better be good! And so he meets me in the middle of the field. I tell him the whole story. I said, John, you got to get in there. I says, I got to go. I need to use your truck because I got to go find a string for my bow. But I says, you got to get in there. So we did. We got in the vehicle. I took him over there. I got my bow out of the ditch. He jumped in there. He was just going to go.
I'm assuming this was relatively early in the day still.
So this was, so I blew up my bow like at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, okay.
So he was going to get there about noon.
Sure.
Ish.
Yeah.
And so he does. And I told him, I says, where all the activity, I could hear him running. It was right on the creek bank. I kind of give him an idea what I was thinking. But, he doesn't know any more than I did.
Right.
I was only into the property maybe 200 yards.
Right. Right.
And so anyway, he goes in there. I start driving the countryside. Well, in the meantime, he says, well, if you can't find a bowstring, I brought my dad's bow, and he says, but I'm 6'1". My buddy's 5 foot. His dad's 5 foot. And so their bows were just. Yeah. And I thinking, well, it's better than nothing if I can't find a string. So I drove all over every little gun shop, every place. Yeah. I went probably 40 miles around there. I couldn't find a string.
Nothing. Yeah.
So I called home, and Rick Harris was going to come out a couple days later, or a day later. And so I called Jay's. I said, hey, I need
Send me a string.
Rick's going to stop in there, give him a string. So he does. So I know this is a long story, but it's worth it. You'll hear it. But anyhow, so So I get John's bow, Dad's bow. I'm shooting. I mean, I'm shooting it with,
it's a kid's bow, basically.
Yeah, but it's a bow, So I get there, go back to the property, and I go into the guy's driveway that gave us permission. I walk down his fence line. I was just going to jump the gate because I knew about where John, and we had 2A radios. So I could say, hey, how you doing? Good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where'd you end up? Okay, about that part. Okay, I'm going to go further down over here, blah, blah, blah. I jumped the fence, the gate, like a metal cattle gate.
Yep.
I jumped the cattle gate, and that buck was laying down with the doe right there. Boom, up he jumps. The doe looks at me. She takes off, and he's right behind her. And so I turned 2A radio. I said, John, I says, that big buck we saw yesterday, a couple days, 3 days ago, I said, is heading your way with the doe, And he said, okay. And so this is a thick, nasty thing.
Sure.
I'm going through there. I find a tree. I finally get the lock on up in the tree and get all settled. I'm sweating to death, and the old those screw-in pegs and stuff. I mean, it was so much work. That's why I wasn't fat back then, And so I get all settled in, and all of a sudden the radio cracks. He says, I just shot him. What? I just shot him. He says, I spined him. He's
spinning in circles.
Right. He's 2 foot hoofing it down the creek bottom. You know? And so I says, I'm coming, So I kind of knew where he was, vicinity where he's at. So I went over there, and by that time he had put another arrow in it and killed it. This thing had to have been 250 pounds. He was just a big. I'm sure on my phone somewhere I'd have the picture, but his neck was just jowly, and he was the biggest body deer I'd ever seen.
Really.
And we pulled him out of there, and it was awesome. And so John Lee, because Chuck had killed out. Chuck Molson had killed out. So they left to go to Illinois.
Okay.
Because the Illinois was $100, and so John said, I'm going to go too. And I said, well, Rick's coming, so I'll have a vehicle, whatever. So anyhow, I guess I had a vehicle there. I can't remember why anyways, whatever. I had a vehicle there too. But anyhow, so John leaves, and Chuck's gone, and so now I'm just going to be there waiting for Rick to show up. Rick shows up. We stayed in a little old, cheap and sleazy hotel. And he gets there. So in the middle of the night, I'm, with the bow press.
Right.
Trying
to put her back together.
Put back together, and it was snowing. It was that heavy snow.
Oh yeah,
heavy snow. So now I'm out in the front yard of the hotel with the 6 inches of snow on the ground, trying to hit a target. I lost 2 arrows. It was just
that's a comedy of errors.
Yeah. So, but the next morning I am going back to that spot.
There you go.
Because I know there's 2 nice bucks there.
Right.
So I get out there the next morning, and I wait until daylight. I was going to still hunt, and I didn't have any winter camo, so I had a white sweatshirt that I put camel paint on.
Yep.
Pulled that over top of my camo, and I'm thinking I'm going to just still hunt. So I get there before daybreak. I wait till daybreak, and I was in one of those washouts. Would take a leaf off of a tree, put it down, and shoot at that leaf.
Yep.
Try to get it's close enough,
Right.
So I go get in, jump the fence, and I'm walking, just slowly, I'd walk 10 yards and I'd stop for 15 minutes, go do that, and all of a sudden I could hear deer moving. I could hear grunts off in the distance. This was just a heaven, one of those places.
It's perfect.
And all of a sudden, here this doe comes up off the ridge. She's coming right at me. I get down on one knee, and she just about runs me over. And she's kind of zigzagging around, but she comes right by me like this. And I looked at my watch. It was 8 o'clock, and I says, I'm going to set on one knee here until 8:30 and see what happens. 8:15, nothing. 8:20, nothing. And I'm thinking, I'm going to get up and start walking.
Yeah.
I just started walking. It was like 8:25, and all of a sudden I could hear burp, 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 and up the ridge, and here he comes. And it's the other one this one was fighting.
Yeah.
And he's coming up the ridge, and I'm thinking he's going to come. I'm going to have a point blank. If he follows that doe. Well, he gets about 25, 30 yards out, and he goes broadside. And again, he got these line of trees. He's, like I say, almost like a nursery of trees.
Right.
And he comes broadside, and he stops at 25, 30 yards. I'm at full draw. I put the pin on him. I'm thinking, hey, he's in the freezer, man. I shoot. Well, there was a branch hanging down, and I hit the branch, and the arrow goes straight up in the air. And matter of fact, later on, I mean, before I leave that area, it was stuck right straight in the ground. I could see the fletching, so it shot it right up in the air, and it stuck down the ground. And he bounded into the next row of trees. And so I'm looking at him, and he's looking, he's still looking where he thinks this doe. He doesn't have a clue that I'm in the wide open, but I'm down in this heavy snow with this white camel.
Yeah.
He doesn't see me.
Doesn't see you.
I get another arrow on, and he starts coming down that row of trees. He comes back. So the first shot probably was 35 yards because he came back in front of me at 25, probably 20, 25 yards. I put it right on him. I'm going, okay, he's a dead deer. I don't see any limb. I shoot, and I miss him. And I have no idea if I miss him high, low. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, yeah, because you're just got your bow put back together.
Yeah. I mean, I know it sounds like an excuse, but I literally had no idea how I had missed him. And he bounds out to, 35 yards. And again, now he's out. He's quartering away from me, but his head is turned around. He's looking back where this doe went.
Yeah.
He still doesn't know that it's me, And so I'm just quietly trying to get in there.
Grab another arrow.
Put the arrow on. He's standing, again, 35 yards, quartering away. I pull back, and I shoot, and I miss again.
Oh,
and now this time and if I knew if I was shooting high or low, I could adjust, but I couldn't. I just couldn't tell. I couldn't see what was happening. And now he comes at me, and he comes by me, and now he's 45 yards behind me. So now I got one broadhead left. I turn around. I mean, I'm trying to scoot around on one knee, get all the way turned around, and I pull back. And I've just kind of closed my eyes, and I just gotta kind of feel this, because he's 45 yards quartering away, but he's looking towards where the doe went. He doesn't have any clue that I'm still.
Are you shooting a single pin at this point, or a stack of pins?
That was a stack. That was years ago. But so I'm thinking, I think he's like 45 yards, and I just kind of felt, okay, this feels about right. Poof, shoot, and bam, I hit him right in the pocket, and he goes, takes off across this field. It was a, like I say, nursery.
Yeah.
And I can see him get all the way to the fence. He stands at the fence, and I'm thinking he's going to fall down. I mean, I buried it right in his armpit.
Right.
But he was quartering away pretty steep. Stood at the fence, and I got the binoculars up, and I'm thinking I'm seeing blood pouring out of him. So I'm thinking, he's going to be gone. He jumps the fence and disappears. So I mean, I'm thinking, well, I had the two field tips that I had taken out that morning to try to sight in
your bow. Resight the bow. Yeah.
And then I had the one arrow that was stuck in. I could look over there. I could see it, so I grabbed that arrow and headed to the. I didn't track him because I knew where he was standing in the fence.
And there's snow on the ground, right?
Snow on the ground.
Yeah.
Got to the fence. Well, what I was seeing, what I thought was blood pouring out, was just the arrow hanging down.
Dangling, yeah.
And then because the arrow was right there. Mm-hmm. So now I have two broadheads. Yeah, but the one that hit the tree was bent, but I had two broadheads and two field tips. And so, but when it jumps the fence, this is a plowed field.
Yeah.
And it's just painted. I mean, it's a red arrow, like there. He's went right there. I mean, I'm looking.
Walking path.
150 yards, I can see the path.
Yeah.
So I'm walking, and it's that heavy, wet snow, so it was kind of crunchy.
Yep.
It wasn't a great snow to be still hunting in, but I was. And I get to the top of the ridge, and I'm looking down. So now I'm just scanning with my binoculars because I can see right where the red goes into this drainage and then comes out of the drainage, and there he lays. It's underneath a tree with a bunch of brush.
Yep.
And he's laying there, but he's looking right at me. And I'm probably, 70, 80 yards away.
Okay.
And so I'm thinking, well, I'll just sit here until he dies.
Right.
So I just sat down. And 15 minutes goes by, and all of a sudden his head goes, boom, 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 hits the ground. Good. He's dead. Oh, great. So I start walking across. I go 3 or 4 steps. Boom, up his head comes.
Oh my
looks at me again. And again, now I'm telling you that this is a 135-inch deer that was still a giant for me at the time.
Yeah.
And so I sat back down. I think, okay. So now I'm 50.
Just going to wait him out?
Yeah, I'm 50 yards away. I'll just wait him out. 15 minutes go by. Boop, boop, boop. His head hits the ground again. Okay. I think he's dead. Get up, start walking. I go another, 10 yards. Up his head comes. And I'm going, cry, I gotta get another arrow.
Right.
I gotta get another arrow in him. And again, I didn't have the history of knowing what a single lung shot deer was.
Sure.
I just knew that was
this
a big
was a
buck.
hit deer.
It was a big buck, and I was not gonna let that thing go.
Right.
Unless I was gonna, if I had to throw my bow at it, I was gonna do it. It was just one of those things where we had gone so many years with never getting a chance, and here's my chance. I'm not
blowing it.
So I get up about 30 yards, first broadhead. I shoot. It hits. I mean, he's setting behind this like the heavy, almost like nettles.
Yeah.
He's laying behind there, and the arrow just didn't get to him. So I kind of go over to the side. I'm thinking, okay, it looks like there's a lane right through there. I shoot the next arrow, and so I'm thinking now I got 2 field tips. I'm thinking, well, field tips better than nothing. And I'm thinking, well, maybe my field tips will fly better than my broadheads because, obviously I was shooting in the ditch, felt pretty confident with my field tips. I shoot with my field tips, and boom, I hit the bank below it. So the field tips were definitely shooting completely different than the broadhead. I mean, I stuck it right into the ditch. I mean, he was on that one of those washouts.
Yeah.
And this washout was only probably 7 foot wide.
Yeah.
But still probably 6 foot deep. And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to raise it up. I raise up, I shoot, and then it just hit those nettles.
Out of arrows.
I'm out of arrows. I'm completely out of arrows. And I'm thinking, well.
Did he ever get up?
No.
He just sat right. He was hurting.
Again, if I was today, I would have backed out and just let him lay.
Let him lay overnight, yeah.
I mean, even if this was like 11 o'clock by this time in the morning, probably 9, 8, it was probably about 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
And, but at that time, this is
gung-ho, man.
94, man, and I had never had a chance.
Yeah. The adrenaline's at an all-time high.
And I'm literally saying, either he's going to die or I'm going to die trying.
Yeah.
That was my philosophy.
If I got to jump on this deer's back and pocket knife him.
Because I had done that before in Michigan deer.
Yeah.
And if I was going to do a Michigan deer, I for sure was going to do it with that buck. So anyhow, so I just put my bow down and I'm thinking, okay, I have a knife on my side. That's back when you used to wear them with the big sheath.
Oh yeah.
The big old Bowie knife thing. And it wasn't you didn't have the Havilons,
Oh yeah.
So I pulled my knife out, and I'm looking at my plan. I'm thinking, okay, if I take a step there, I should be able to leap to there, and if I leap up on the bank there, I can lunge forward and maybe stab him. I know that sounds crazy, and I know that sounds stupid, but that's exactly what I was going through my mind. I'm thinking I got to put my
whatever
foot there,
it takes.
Put my foot there. Do this, stab him.
Yeah.
So I'm on the edge of that bank, and I'm kind of going like this. And he's looking right at me, and he's bright-eyed, but he's not moving.
Right.
And so he's probably from the other side of that bank. He's 10 yards probably. And so, I mean, if I would have known I could have got that closer with when I had arrows.
Yeah.
It would have been smart to do that. But anyhow, so I'm leaning back and forth, just like a Olympic person getting ready to do the long jump, and I'm. And I go to jump off. As soon as I put pressure on my foot to shoot off, he takes off.
Oh no!
So then I jumped right down into that washout, and now I'm running. He's above me. He's in front of me, but he's above me. So he's I'm 6 foot down, and he's up on the bank. He's running.
Right.
He's running west, and I'm running west, but I was in the ditch.
In the ditch.
I mean, I got a knife in my hand. There's brush. I know this is stupid, but it's the way it was, man. So there's brush there that I had to bust through. So I'm go to bust through. Well, it was brush there because there was a fence, the wire fence.
Yep.
It hits me at about midsection. I flip over. I land in the the little 6 inches of water. I land on my back. I scramble up, and I don't see him.
Right.
And matter of fact, in front of me is this ginormous tree that evidently when it flooded, it had derooted it and it was laying on its side. And there was a culvert up in the tree. So evidently just a big flood, and there's a
just
culvert
rearranged everything. Yeah.
So I'm thinking, well, where did this deer go? I mean, he couldn't have gone into that tree. And so I continue down the washout, and I seen he come down into this washout with me, and then back up the other side. So I scramble up the other side, and I get to the other side, and there's no blood going down the other side of this little rise. And all of a sudden, I look to my right. On that culvert, there's blood on that culvert. So that sucker jumped from there onto that culvert, and then there was blood. I could see blood going down the culvert. So I got back, boom! I land on the culvert, and as soon as I land on the culvert, I looked down, and this culvert was probably 30 foot long, and it was laying down into this creek.
Okay.
And this creek was now this creek had probably 2 foot of water.
Okay.
And he's laying down at that. So he had slid down that thing, and he was looking up at me. And so I'm thinking,
he's in the bottom of the ditch.
He's in the creek.
Okay.
Laying in the creek at the bottom of that culvert. This culvert was like at a 45-degree angle.
Okay.
So and he's looking up at me, and I'm thinking, well, I can slide down this sucker too. So I started sliding down that culvert. And as soon as I started down the culvert, of course, he gets up, and he's splashing his way down the creek, and I hit the water, and I'm getting closer and closer to him, and he's struggling. I mean, he wants to die.
Yeah, he's wounded bad.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not the $6 million man. So it's not like he's just dying.
Right.
And I just didn't want to let him die on his own.
Right. Yeah.
And so I'm running, I'm getting close, almost to where I could put my hand on his butt, and I have my knife, and I'm coming up like this. I know this sounds stupid, but I hit a branch with my hand.
Oh, my God.
My knife goes out of my hand into the water, and I fall forward, and I kind of push him, and he falls down. And so now I'm on all fours. He's not more than, 5 feet, 6 feet away from me. He is laying down in the water too.
Yeah.
And for some reason, instead of paying attention to him, I start thinking, I got to get my knife. So I'm going like this. About the time I'm going like this, I look back, and he is coming at me.
Oh, my God.
And he's got his, I don't know if you've ever had a deer come at you.
I've never had one charge me, but I've talked to guys who had.
They have devil eyes. I tell you, they
eyes rolled right in the back of the head.
Back of their head, and he is coming at. He's going to take me out. I mean, I understand.
Of course, threat.
And so I react about enough time to. I'm on my hands and knees, but I rear back and I catch his left antler, and he comes right on. So he's on top of me. I'm in a couple foot of water. So I mean, there's water. I mean, it's I'm
cow,
completely.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm completely submerged. Other than my head, I'm underwater. Other than my head. And his back feet are going 100 miles an hour. Because I remember that feeling, because it was almost like I was in a rainstorm.
Yeah.
Because it was like an
just
egg
splashing
beater.
Water
his
everywhere.
Back feet were just going, and I could feel it just hit me in the face. And I'm thinking, at the time, I'm going, what the heck? What am I going to do? And all of a sudden, I'm thinking, you're in 2 foot of water. I grabbed that other antler, and I pulled his nose right into my armpit, and he worked until he couldn't work anymore.
Are you kidding me? You drowned him right there?
I drowned him.
Oh, my God.
I don't know who's going to listen to this, because I'm probably going to PETA. Here I'm this artist that, I'm probably going to get in trouble for this from somebody. But it was one of those things where I'm a hunter, and I wanted to kill that deer, and I didn't want him to get away.
You just didn't know any better.
I just didn't know any better.
Didn't know any better.
Because I had tackled a deer a couple times before, and I had people say, that's a 4-point or 6-point. You go out to Iowa, you'll never do that in Iowa. Now again, this is a 130-inch buck, 135-inch buck, but this was a 200-pound deer.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And I ended up drowning him, and so that was about 11 o'clock-ish. I drug him back. I had to go over 3 4-foot fences, barbed wire fences. I drug him back. I got back to my truck at 3:30 in the afternoon.
You had to be freezing.
No, it was. I think adrenaline, and it was a sunny day. Actually.
Oh, okay.
But there was a lot of snow. It was a good thing there was snow on the ground, because I drug him.
Was able to drag him.
I couldn't
over
find my knife, so I ended up went back to the went back to the original place where I was shooting, not the original place, but I ended up finding one of my arrows, and I used the broadhead to gut him with, and drug him back to the truck. I mean, it took me all day to get him back.
Freaking Daniel Boone story.
So, but I tell you that story. I mean, it's a fun story to tell, and it's every syllable is the truth. But John and I always say that was our icebreaker bucks. Those 2 bucks, 135-inch deer, which today is not that big a deal. We come home. I ended up going to Iowa or Illinois after that, and it was super windy, and we ended up coming home. And so we came home, and I remember getting home and calling Yanks, calling Fedowa.
Yeah.
I don't know if Jason was one. Blystone. Steve Blystone. And we ended up having
Rockstar.
Yeah, we have these 235-inch deer in my garage, and we're gonna live behind the stockyards there in that garage, and we had probably 12 or 15 guys that came to see these 2.
Just oohing and on. Tell the story.
Yeah, 135-inch deer that you'd send a picture to them. Now nice buck, But back then, and that not only were they big, I mean, antler-wise, were big at that time, but they were just big bodied deer. So
crazy.
Anyways, we haven't even talked anything about. I told you, it comes to hunting, we've been going out of state, like I say, since '91. I've got a ton of stories.
Yeah.
You do too, because
I've been doing it for 25 years now. Yeah. Started going in 2000, I think.
You have the great stories, and you have the sad ones, but it's the whole thing is it's just it's a passion that you have that you got to feed. I've been very fortunate. My wife's been. I mean, I tell people, the pastors one time said, I would never recommend saying that to a young couple that are getting married. But I told her, I said, if you're going to marry me, if we're going to get married, there's 2 things I do.
Right.
I play softball all summer long.
Yeah.
And I play a lot of softball. I did it back in the time, baseball until it was fast pitch, and then eventually softball. And then I hunt in the fall.
Yeah.
And I says, if you can't, if
that doesn't work for you,
I don't know if you really want to do this type of thing.
Right.
And she did. Now, what she'll always say is, well, yes, but back that day, that was before I started bow hunting. John Everett, my buddy from Sheboygan, he was going to school to be a doctor. He was at MSU, and anyhow, so they moved to the Mason area for a period of time when he was doing whatever he had to do to be a doctor. Yep. Excuse me, and so he taught me how to bow hunt.
Yeah.
And so she always says, well, yes, but it was November 15th back then, and not October 1st.
Yeah, not October 1st till December.
Yeah. So, but she's been great because she knows that. Because I've had other friends and acquaintances that. Yeah. That just got, their wives would just hammer on them, and they would have to compromise and stuff, and and I've had a compromise. I've had times where I wanted to hunt that I didn't hunt because I should be doing family stuff, but most of the time, I mean 99% of the time, she hasn't ever complained.
It takes a very special woman to be married to a diehard hunter.
In my house, my living room, I've got 12, 13 mounts in the living room on my main floor on where everybody sees them. Yeah. She's also been really good at that too, so
that's
she
awesome.
hasn't made me hide them in the garage or anything
in the basement like mine.
Well, but this is a different story. This is an awesome man cave. I mean, if I had, I do have a big basement, but I have my man cave is my art studio, so that's what I have.
Yeah. So let's transition into that.
Yeah, because you're never gonna get done. Yeah, you're gonna outdo Rogan's
That's
3
okay.
hour thing.
That's okay. I always say if it's good, we'll just keep talking. But yeah.